Okay.
Awesome.
Well, welcome back, everybody, to the Vancouver Special Podcast. I've lost count of how many episodes we've done, to be honest. Is it 6 or 7?
I'm going to guess 6.
Okay.
I'm usually incorrect, though. 6 or 7.
Yeah, well, we're
Right.
somewhere there, and we've come to the end of 2024, which I feel like is insane. But since our last episode, how have you been?
Pretty good. So we've been delayed, if you might have noticed. We've been delayed a little bit. Both Michelle and I got sick. We caught the same bug at the office.
And we got absolutely taken out by it.
Obliterated.
Yeah.
So there was that. And then just a whole bunch of, I think, busyness, personal life, business life. Business has picked up, across the table. But overall, been pretty good. We have a couple weeks left in the year. I'm still busy, right? I
do have a new listing up, which is not typical for this time of year, but here we are.
Yeah, people they're not really waiting until January, many people. So just kind of going through the motions, hopefully have, obviously a little bit of time off with family yourself.
Yes. That forced break from being sick was kind of nice, but then I'm not going to lie to you, by day 7, I was getting cabin fever. I was so bored, I wanted to work, but I knew I was I need to stay home. I need to rest. I need to really give my body the break that it's asking for at this point.
Yeah. I felt so bad because we hadn't filmed for a while.
Yeah.
And we were planning to film, and I feel like I was the one who was kind of I couldn't do it last time. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm so sick right now. But I was going to try and plug away and get it done, get my voice out. And then you texted being like, hey, I'm super sick. And so I was like, oh, I'll take this. But yeah, we're here, and I think it's a good time because, end of the year, lots of things have happened in the market. We just had a 50 basis point rate cut. The year in general, I would say from a tackling the housing supply crisis perspective, so many changes.
Yeah, it's been eventful.
Yeah.
Now, whether that's good eventful or bad eventful depends who you ask.
There's always something to talk about, though.
Yes,
I gotta thank this government for giving us material,
content.
For giving us the content. Never have to think about what to do on YouTube or whatnot. But maybe we'll talk about the rate cut. So the second
let's touch on that for now. Big news, breaking news 2 days ago.
Boom.
So 50 basis points. Walk us through that, Hasan. What does that mean for the average person who has a current mortgage?
Yeah. So, if you have a variable rate mortgage, savings of about $30 a month for every $100,000 borrowed.
True variable.
Now, if people are on a fixed rate mortgage, there's going to be no change. You're going to pay what you're going to pay. In terms of, new mortgage originations for fixed rates, it sounds like they're going to come down a little bit more. Fixed rates are more of based on an expectation versus a rate change, right? So it sounds like they might come down a bit more, but I think now, it's the conversation between, do I go variable? Do I go fixed?
Right.
In terms of market activity, I think January is going to be heightened activity, but I also feel like the last 2 months have been quite busy as is. I think people are starting to make moves,
I definitely think there are a lot of buyers who were pushed to the sidelines when the rates came up that are kind of coming back. They're dipping their toe in the water again. And that's something that I do want to emphasize is even if you're logging online and you're trying to look at the rates and you're doing the math yourself and you're these are still really high, it's worth reaching out to your bank or your mortgage broker because sometimes the banks won't advertise the deals that they have right now.
Mm-hmm.
And that was, I find, a trend that happened all throughout this year. Little industry secret, just talk to your broker and be like, hey, if I were to apply now, this is the posted rate, can you do better? Then sometimes they'll be like, actually, you know what, this big bank is offering this rate right now. They just don't want to post it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it also works the other way around. If you go to some obscure website and it's offering some ridiculously low rate, sometimes there's some crazy fine print with it.
Yeah.
So, that's also something you want to take to a mortgage broker and say, hey, is this something you could actually match?
Yeah.
Oftentimes some of these sites are just trying to kind of get you into their funnel.
Get your information.
Yeah. And then they'll be like, oh, well, we can't really do that for you, but we can do something like this. But I just think overall it's an opportune time. It will be an opportune time over the next 4 to 5 months for end user type of individuals. So first time buyers, upsizers, downsizers, divorcees, hate to say it, but like all of these life-oriented real estate decisions versus investment.
I do have a question for you, more on the commercial side, but I just want to note for anybody with an existing mortgage right now. I know a lot of people had renewals come up last year and they locked in at a higher rate, and now they're like, oh my God, the rate has dropped so much. Like, I'm stuck. What do I do? You do have an option. We talked about this a little bit with Jess in the last episode, where you do have the option of going to your bank or your broker and being like, hey, what's my penalty if I were to cut this existing agreement right now and refi at a lower rate? And then you do the math. Either way, you're paying that interest out. It's just now or later. And sometimes you have some savings there. So that's an option too for any existing mortgage holders.
Yeah. And let the broker do the math. Don't try and do it on your own. I hear like we're like,
because there's fees and stuff too.
Yeah, there's stuff that you're not going to be aware of or whatnot. I hear that we're, depending on obviously when you originated your mortgage, we might be a little bit a ways away from that, but getting there, right? I think it's going to be a promising, first half of 2025 real estate wise, but economy wise, rate cuts, like, realtors will celebrate these rate cuts like they're like amazing things. They're really not good.
Yeah. If we take a step back and look at it big picture, it's an indicator of a down economy.
I would say failing economy. Jobs are horrific. All the jobs that are being created are in the public sector. So it's not really doing anything for business per se. GDP, 6 consecutive quarters of decline per capita. That's really ugly.
The unemployment rate,
Yeah, and like, you have Trump coming in the U.S. talking about tariffs, and I mean, if it happened, did you get that face on camera? I hope you got that face because that was perfect. But like if he comes through with the tariffs, that's going to be very significant against our economy.
Yeah,
and likely to
our
see more rate cuts.
Our economy is so tied to the U.S. economy.
Yeah,
but the interesting thing is, in the States, the Feds haven't cut the rates yet.
No, they might next time around because I think their inflation number was pretty consistent or steady this time around. So they might. We kind of need that to happen because we can't have like this crazy divergence. But at the end of the day, if that were to happen, if there are some sort of tariffs, it's fully expected there's going to be more cuts into next year. And from a Canadian government perspective, truthfully, the only thing they know how to do is make it easier for you to borrow more money and buy real estate.
Yes.
Realistically, right?
So looping back to my question about commercial, so this rate cut that the Bank of Canada announced, how does that affect the commercial space? Because, there are people out there with like small businesses or who have bought a commercial space or are thinking of buying a commercial space. What does that look like?
Yeah, so I don't know exactly what the rates are, but what I can say is I have a mortgage broker contact I was talking to the other day, and he said he just started to do unsecured lending. And he said that the demand for unsecured business loans is going through the roof right now.
Well,
he's doing like millions of dollars in loans. And that's the toughest thing for business owners right now, as I'm told, is not necessarily the taxation surrounding it, but getting access to the capital.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't know exactly, the rates will obviously be higher because it's unsecured. But what I can say is that a lot of businesses are out there, seeking funds to try and move forward essentially. Do I see 2025 as a good time for business investment? Again, circling back to like the Trump and the tariffs and all of these question marks, I just don't see how businesses at this point in time that could be affected by tariffs are going to invest money.
Yeah.
So it's a bit of a holding pattern.
Personally, I would wait for dust to settle.
Yeah. And I think that's also why the bank cut 50 basis points again, because they know that businesses are not going to invest at this current time.
Yeah.
You have GST holiday coming into play now in a couple of days.
The 15th onwards.
Which I think is ludicrous. I think it's absolutely ridiculous. As someone who...
Tell us how you really feel.
Well, here's the thing. It's like, it's the busiest time period for these retailers.
Yeah.
And you have the government coming to them saying, hey, you need to reprogram all of your POSs. You need to, read the fine print. You're allowed to, discount
exemptions and all these things. Yeah.
On December 15th.
Yeah.
Like if I'm a business owner and I've been there, I've worked in retail, I had restaurants, I've had to redo the POS systems and stuff to do it on December 15th or December 14th.
Yeah. when everybody's mentally checked out and the accounting department probably is already away.
You don't even have an accounting department. Like, you're a small business, right? Yeah. So you're the owner, you're the accountant. It's absolutely asinine.
Yeah.
Like, completely ridiculous. But what it does is it really shows you, oh God, it really shows you like this government's viewpoint on business and the business owner is that they make these decisions and they don't even think about the business owner. Yeah. It's going to make their lives a living hell.
Yeah.
Truthfully.
Well, it's like that model of people who end up in upper management who don't have that like frontline experience. They come up with the concepts and they're like, this is great, and then implement it. But there's such a big disconnect with the actual application of things. And that's in general. So I guess we are seeing that now. Yeah. But my thing is whenever there are cuts and freebies and stuff, like when CERB was a thing, like where is that money coming from? It's going to come from your pocket at some point of time, one way or another. So
yeah, we're paying for it. And like, you know, back to the housing front, like, it's just so politicized. That's the one thing I kind of hate about our industry, and especially like creating content, is it's become so politicized.
It's so polarizing.
You can't put out a piece of content without having like 10 people in the comment section say that it's a liberal government fault, it's a conservative's fault, and you're just a conservative supporter and this and that. And it's like, yeah, it's polarizing. I understand it, but I don't see like that aspect getting better into 2025. I think there'll be more activity. You know, I don't think prices are gonna like run away or anything like that.
Yeah.
What do you think 2025 is gonna look like
for real estate buyers and sellers now more than ever? Stay in your lane, keep your head down, focus on your own stuff. I mean, if it's your goal to buy property and be a homeowner, like, you know, obviously there are politics and stuff that are surrounding things that might make slight bumps or influences in your decision making, but don't let it sway you from that goal. Or just stick to what you want, because there's always going to be outside noise. And we've talked about this before, where there's always going to be another opinion. Don't buy now, buy now. Like, is now the right time, or the price is too high, or the rate's too low, this, that, or the other. But at the end of the day, if you can do it, if you can make it work, go for it. And I think now more than ever, that's why education and understanding like the qualifications of buying a home, even maintaining a home and continuing to own a home, and like the steps that you want to take, like look long term even, is more important than ever. And that's why we come in as far as our industry and our colleagues like mortgage brokers, financial advisors, all those people. It's now really important to make sure that people really understand what it means for them specifically, because what might work for this guy might not work for you, because their financial situation could be totally different, or they might not have a priority about wanting, you know, equity to live off of once they retire, kind of thing. So,
and I think that kind of like, you know, that's how like it is nowadays, is there's a lot of people, most people are like self-learning this stuff.
Yeah.
Right? Whereas like 10 years ago, you would go to your realtor would tell you whatever, and you'd be like, okay, I trust you. You're the real estate agent. This is going to work. But the self-education piece in every aspect of our lives, right? So it might be for you, if you're a buyer, you're getting on YouTube or Instagram, you're searching, whatever it is, you're doing your self-education. For other people, it's in healthcare. Like for myself, I can't get a doctor's appointment, so I'll just figure out what's wrong with me.
Don't
on
WebMD.
My own. I'll go to, I'll find 5 or 6 sources, and then I'll just kind of average it, and they'll say, okay, you have this, you have this, you might have that, you probably have this, and then I'll determine based on that what I believe I have.
As long as it's not like you're gonna die in a week.
I have a whole nother spiel on healthcare. We'll probably get into a different point, but my point being is that, you know, we're in an information age. There's so much information
and
out
it's like that. It's at your fingertips, and it's getting harder and harder to determine what is reliable or not,
and what is real or not with AI.
Oh gosh, I know all the videos that I see. I'm like, oh, that's so cute. They found like a new deep water like species, whatever. And then I go in the comments, they're like, this is AI. I'm like, dang it.
You can't trust any of it.
Like, that thing was so cute. Like,
yeah. No, you can't trust any of it, and that's comes down to 2 pieces, right? It's like, you can self-educate, but at the end of the day, when you need to figure out your path and you know how the nuances work in the industry, you do need to have professionals that you can trust. So I always tell people, like, you know, build relationships with professional people in general. You shouldn't like reach out to a real estate agent when you're like, oh, I need to buy in the next week, so I'm going to try and find a real estate agent. make professional contacts.
Yeah.
And if they don't have time for you when you're not buying, I take so many calls from buyers, sellers. I call them buyers and sellers, but they're really not. They book me and they're like, hey, I just want to talk about real estate.
Yeah.
This crazy thing happened at my strata. Like, what would you do in this situation? If you're not working with someone that's willing to, have those sort of discussions with you, you kind of need to move along.
Yeah.
And you need to build it because trust builds over time.
Yeah.
Right?
And like, not going to lie, my biggest pet peeve statement that I get all the time, and it's a pet peeve because I hate when people ask me this, is like, oh, I don't want to like waste your time. You're not wasting my time. Like, honestly, I could talk about this until I turn blue. So I'm more than happy to like listen to your situation, understand what's going on, and then give you my 2 cents. Mm-hmm. And whether you choose to take that, that's totally up to you. But I'm coming from a position where like I have the knowledge, the information, I'm more than happy to share.
Yeah.
And our role as realtors, and this is for everybody else out there too, more now is to be that advisor where like the key thing to your success is going to be how well you can listen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then if your clients still don't really have a sense of direction, usually like when those people come to me, I give them homework and I go, look, I want you to really think about the neighborhood you want to be in, the lifestyle you want to live, how much money you want for a vacation, and then work it backwards and then see how much money you have left over. Can you buy a home? Yes or no?
Mm-hmm.
Like, help direct them in that sense, but it is coming from an advisory standpoint. Like if they're saying to me, oh, I really want to buy a house, but, I don't want to give up the fact that I go on vacation 4 times a year and all these things. And you're like, okay, well, what I'm hearing is it's not really your priority right now.
Going to Wally.
Yeah. Don't go there. Let's save up for 3 more years. No.
Good time to buy in Wally, actually. But,
oh, yeah.
But I think you, like, on the whole, when they call and they're like, oh, I don't want to waste your time, or there might be like, oh, I'm not ready to buy. I think it really just says a lot about our industry and the fact that there's a little bit of an inherent mistrust with the industry where it's kind of like, realtors are viewed as snakes. Like if you call
That's
them,
the uphill battle we fight on the daily.
Right? You go to an if you go to an open house and the realtor's chatting you up, it's because he wants to close you on a sale.
Everybody's so close to
No, sometimes I'm just bored at the open house. Like I want to talk to you. Like
I don't want to be twiddling my thumbs staring at a wall by myself.
So many times I'm like, thank you for coming. Like thanks for taking the time and just spending the time with me. But I do get it. It's a sad reality of the industry where it's that perception of, all we care about are sales. And I don't, that's not it at all. Like you and I both, we put out tons of content all the time. We're helping people all the time.
Well, you more than me these days.
Yeah, but it ebbs and flows. Like even for me, I have days where I'm like, ugh, like I do not want to do this, right? Yeah. But like we give out like whatever we can for free and give out value. It's not because we want you necessarily to call me. Like I know people are viewing my content and working with other realtors. But I do know I'm also like a side chick realtor. And so what I mean by this is, and this is important, if you're a realtor watching this and you're thinking about like creating content, you won't realize it, but you will be so many people's second choice for when their realtor messes up. So when I say side chick realtor, I don't mean that I'm like giving advice to someone under contract.
Yeah, because that's not allowed.
Yeah, exactly. I don't do that. But I get so many calls where they're like, I watched a video you did and I'm working with a realtor and I'm thinking, why didn't that realtor tell me this? Why am I learning it from you? Mm-hmm. So again, like if you are a real estate agent watching this, you're thinking, should I be creating content? Like what's the benefit? Give away everything you know for free. Yeah. Because someone is going to say, hey, I didn't get that level of service. Mm-hmm. Here I am, ready to go. Service,
transparency, information, whatever. Just that extra layer of trust, like you mentioned. So,
and don't BS. Just like, don't fabricate. Talk about the good, talk about the bad. I think, that's the other thing with our industry is there's a lot of like, of course, celebrating wins or whatever, but there's so much like bad stuff that happens behind the scenes, right? Mm-hmm. Work with a client. Did you have any like horror stories from 2024?
I wouldn't really call it a horror story, but it was a very good learning point for me where it was selling a tenanted property. And I was trying to be like source of information for all parties. But I misquoted something and the tenant ended up being really advantageous and like using it against my seller. And so I ended up needing to eat that monetarily just to make things right. But that, yeah, it's just one of those things where there are going to be people out there who are going to, take advantage of your kindness and the things that you're sharing. And there are people who are going to be like, yeah, no, you know what, I understand. But I also get where that comes from. Like, as a tenant right now, it's tough out there. Like, it's hard to find good landlords. It's hard to find good places to live in. And then it's hard to find something that fits your budget. So I totally get it. Like, when your landlord's like, hey, I'm thinking of selling, you feel like your back's up against the wall.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And naturally, I think your guard is up like all the time.
Yes.
Right? Like the lower your rent is, the more likely it is your landlord is going to say, I'm done with this.
More reason for you to buy a home. No, I'm kidding.
Talk to Michelle.
The security of being a homeowner. No. Yeah. So I get both sides, but it was just one of those really series of unfortunate events where it ended up being negative in my end at the end of the day. So, but learn from that. So now it's like whenever a tenant will ask me a question, I'll be like, here's the link to the tenancy board.
Yeah.
And then I'm not going to be friendly anymore.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is, like, it's always changing, right? Like, it's really hard to keep up with all of the changes. Like, even all the, transit-oriented development and multiplex, and this city is doing that. This city is not doing this. And it's so hard to keep up. Or
even like the notice thing, the 4 months and then 3 months and then just kidding, not anymore. And then that happened within a span of 3 months, I think, like with a deadline of 4 weeks or something like that.
Yeah.
So that was crazy because what we used to do, and I don't know if there are any other agents or if you do this, when you work with a tenanted property, we give them like an FAQ sheet at the beginning.
Oh, okay.
Because we want them to let us have access. So we don't want them to be like, oh, no, you can't show, blah, blah, blah. So we're like, hey, you know what? We know this is your home. We want to respect your time and your space. And like, we'll always give you 24 hours notice. Like, here's our contact info. This is the showing schedule. Like, please let us know if this is good. Any requirements that you have. Oh, we have a cat. Don't let him out, blah, blah, blah. Then we
It's a nightmare. Don't let the cat out is the
nightmare.
Worst.
I don't know if you saw my story from last week, but there's a cat in the unit that I'm listing right now.
Oh, no.
Sweetest thing. Yeah. But literally every time the door opens, there's like a bell attached. You just see him. You just like, his eyes dart to the door. And I'm like, don't even think about it. I'm like trying to goalie the cat. But
it's a disaster.
Yeah. So we typically do that just to like break that ice and like let them feel a little bit more at ease with us being like in the picture. And out of, I can't really come up with a percentage right now, but one of the times the tenant actually ended up coming up to us and being like, hey, we actually want to write on this place.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. And so that like worked out. And so like, it's stories like that you're like, okay, I'm going to continue doing this. But then on the other end, it's like things that go sideways and you're like, ugh.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why am I nice?
Yeah. Or even just like the tenant displacement in itself. Like that's one part of like this business I don't enjoy
it's rough.
seeing,
I get it.
right? Like in terms of like this business, if I were to look at it and say, okay, I love so much about it, like 98%, I love it. The part that I find like can be challenging to deal with is no matter how hard I try, how much effort I put in, I can never help everyone that wants to buy a home buy a home. I'll never be able to do that.
Yep.
I can't change people's circumstance.
Yep.
And it's very evident when people are, again, in your comment section saying a whole bunch of, crap or whatever it is, and you feel for them, yet they're taking shots at you, yet I feel for them because I'm kind of like, if this is the way you're going to feel better about your situation,
then fine.
Take
or
a
if it's
shot
like,
at me.
I'm understanding your situation and these are the things that I would do, but not everybody's going to be in that headspace. And that's something that I'm working on with my therapist is not projecting what I would do onto other people if I were in their situation. Because then I just get frustrated. So I'm just like, look, this is my advice based on a very objective, factual standpoint. Totally up to you if you want to take it.
Yeah.
Rather than like, why did you do that? You should have done this. Or like, oh no, don't do that. Then you should do this. Because then it just makes me frustrated.
Yeah. Well, and so it sounds as if like you like control. I think you like control a little bit, right?
Well, I mean, don't we all?
Yeah. Oh, it's true. But I think, same sort of thing. But when it's like randoms and they're like taking shots or whatever,
hard.
I'm just like, I'm okay with it. But there's a part of me that's like, man, I wish you weren't in such a position in your own life that this is what you're doing. And then there's a part of me that's like, I know I'm not affecting it, like my career or whatnot. But again, like me being successful in my career, it feels as if it's making someone else's life more difficult. And I'm like, one day I would love to see myself in a position where I'm able to help everyone. I don't know if it exists, but I'm able to help more people.
Yeah.
Right. From like, let's say all walks of life. But I would say that's probably, one of the challenging aspects or whatnot.
I mean, I think for sure we can't help everybody,
Mm-hmm.
and not every client is going to, or not every person is going to end up being your client just because they don't like vibe with you or something. So and that's something that you have to deal with as an advisor. But we do our best. We show up every day, share what we have to share and hope that you guys take a nugget from it. If not, something that you can better your life with, even if it's financial advice, even though we're not financial advisors. But
none of this is financial advice, by the way.
Disclaimer, we are not financial professionals. But on that note, just some reminders for the end of the year. Anybody who's planning on being a first-time home buyer, if you haven't yet, open up that first home savings account and top it up. Max $8,000 a year until you reach 40 grand.
And TFSA as well. Do you know what the limit is this year?
I don't have a TFSA.
Oh, no way.
I'm American, so I'm a dual citizen.
Oh,
but it's complicated.
Okay.
It doesn't exist in the States. I won't get into it. But anyway, I get taxed twice. If anybody thinks that's incorrect, call me.
Yeah.
Because that's what my accountant told me.
Oh, wow. I'm not,
so
I wouldn't say like I'm a big TFS. I do like the TFSA where it's like, obviously you invest within the TFSA. So the banks will not tell you that you can invest within
all of these accounts,
vehicles, right?
RRSP, TFSA, home savings account.
Yeah. Right. And so I learned the hard way because I was like, I opened up a TFSA way back when
the money just sat there?
Well, no, the money sat there for a bit until I put it into weed stocks, and then I put it into all these silly stocks up and down, and I ended up doing okay. Like I did really well with a couple, cannabis stocks or whatnot, and then a couple other ones completely went to zero. So I ended up balancing out. But now I'm like an ETF guy. Are you familiar?
I love
with
ETFs.
Love.
Yes.
Love.
Set it and forget it.
Right? You don't have to think about it. You put it in, and the reason we probably feel good is the market's been up the last couple of years.
I don't look at it.
Yeah, but you don't have to.
Yeah.
Like that's the beautiful thing about ETFs.
Yeah.
And
if I ever want to feel depressed, I'll open up my portfolio. But
I
don't do that.
Or look at the Canadian dollar versus the US dollar.
Oh, it's so painful.
Yeah, which is another reason why, you should be investing in assets right now.
Yeah.
Rather than have money in an account, whether it is ETFs or, getting into real estate, whatever it might be. I don't think it's
the key is diversity.
Yeah, a little bit
don't
everything.
Put all your eggs in one basket.
Yeah, yeah. And I've met a couple of clients actually in the past year where they pretty much have all their money in capital markets and stocks and equities. They're doing really well. And I met with someone like a month ago, and he's talking about his portfolio. He's like, look, I'm up this, I'm up that. He basically lives in a building where it's a purpose-built rental. He's on a ridiculously low rent. There's no risk of him getting evicted because it's a purpose-built rental.
Yeah.
It's so low, and he's coming to me to buy real estate, and I'm like, why?
Yeah.
He goes, he's like, I'm like, if you do it, you got to stay where you live. Like you can't buy a principal residence. Your rent is so cheap.
Yeah.
Like you got to stay there.
Yeah.
And basically we talked it out. And at the end of the conversation, it was like, you probably shouldn't do this.
Yeah.
Then I was like, do you have any stock picks for me though?
Yeah.
Like, because this, you know what I mean?
Go talk to these wealth management people instead.
Yeah.
But that's
but having those conversations with clients, like, do you find like you learn a lot from your clients too? Like,
oh yeah,
give and take.
And sometimes they're like, yeah, this is where I live right now, and my rent is like $1,200. I literally look them dead in the eye. I'm like, don't ever leave. We'll figure out something else for your money. But because what's the point? And this is something that I said a couple years ago, where I feel like the state of housing in Vancouver is going to turn a little bit into Los Angeles, where the norm is you rent.
Yeah.
Hardly anybody owns real estate there anymore because it's passed on generation to generation. Property tax, all these other things, influencing factors as to why young people aren't buying real estate.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think like that's a possibility here.
Yeah. If you look at like the Broadway plan or whatever, the new development plan for Broadway subway project, I think it's like 90% of the applications in right now, maybe even more than that, are for rentals. Are for rentals. And, you know, the properties that you can purchase on the west side of Vancouver, many of them coming up are leaseholds where First Nations owns the land. So if you look at it kind of from a long-term perspective, you're going to have these, large national companies, hedge funds owning all of the land in Vancouver. They're going to give you your small piece, whether that's on a 99-year lease.
It's literally monopoly in real life.
Yes. That's such a good way to put it. And I think what ends up happening, hopefully not, is mom and pop investor gets shaken out over the next 15 to 20 years, like the smaller investors.
I mean, we already saw that kind of this year. A lot of people unloading because of like the cap gains thing and all those talks of stuff and just how difficult it is to manage a property these days. The numbers not working, all these policies. So, yeah.
Yeah, becoming a renter city. So that's how it is in LA then, I guess.
Yeah. Like a lot of my family, it's either they live in their family home and they're waiting for it to be passed down to them by the previous generation or they just continue renting. And like I have some older relatives who have been renters their whole lives, and LA is rent controlled. So similar to here where you can only increase rent by so much. So there are definitely people like out there who have lived in the same place for like 30 years and are paying like crazy money.
Right.
Like crazy low.
Yeah.
So,
and I wonder from like a development perspective, so you were mentioning like people living in their homes for a long time. I wonder how they're dealing with density in LA in terms of
well, they have the room, right? So like the suburbs are like, so that's where you live. Like nobody lives in downtown in LA. Right. You go out and you commute. And that's just part of life. It's part of why my parents moved up here.
Oh, yeah.
My mom's like, I don't want to be a slave to the freeway. So with here, if you think about it, kilometer-wise, the furthest that people will really go if they work in Vancouver, I would say is like here, Langley.
Yeah.
Maybe
Abbotsford.
But even then, that's like a normal everyday commute for majority of the population in Los Angeles.
Right,
like that distance, that time in the car.
Yeah.
Like that's normal everyday life. Like we're very spoiled here.
I've been to Abbotsford twice in the last week.
I only drive through Abbotsford when I go to Kelowna.
Yeah, no, I have like a VIP. Like one of my first clients probably in this business is trying to make another move. So normally if it's out there, I would generally refer it out. But this is a certain circumstance. That is a trek when there's traffic.
Yeah.
When there's traffic, that is a trek. When there's no traffic though, with Highway 17 or whatever, I can get there in like 45 minutes-ish. But man, as soon as there's some traffic,
that's why I got to plug in EV. Me and my OK sticker, we're zooming down the HOV lane.
Oh, no way. You have a EV now?
Yeah.
How do you like it?
Love it.
Yeah?
Yeah, it was great. I don't think I can ever go back. Will I make the jump to full electric? I don't know. But that's next year's problem. My lease is up next year.
I don't know if we're there yet.
For full electric?
Well,
it's tough for me because like I live in an apartment building, so I don't know whether it will be really that consistent and reliable for me to be able to charge a full EV like on a regular basis.
Yeah.
I mean, given the range and the amount that I drive, if I'm just like bopping around the city, it'll probably be once every week or two.
Right.
But yeah, I feel like that would be a question for if I get into a detached home.
Yeah. No
or a
doubt.
townhouse.
Yeah.
But for now, I'm happy where I'm at. So I'm like, let's just cater to the current lifestyle that I'm living. So
yeah. Well, on that note, like there's a lot of stratas that are kind of undergoing these assessments now to say, hey, can we retrofit essentially and allow for EV charging?
Well, it's required
parkings,
now.
right?
I think the deadline is 2026. You need to have an EV assessment
report, right?
Yeah, which like my strata manager was like, you guys should probably do it sooner than later because the longer you wait, closer to the deadline, the prices are probably going to go up. These electrical companies are going to be like, boom, 10 grand.
Have you seen an electrical report in strata documents yet?
No.
It's thick. THICC. It is. It is honestly
multiple C's.
It's a thick report. Like there's a lot.
Do you know how much they paid for it?
I have no idea.
Dang it.
But it's wild. But everyone's going to be going through it. And if you're in an older building, like you're not going to have the capability to be able to.
So there are two that I know of. So one is you need to have the feasibility study. Okay. And then after that, you need the EV ready plan.
Oh, okay. I've seen the study.
If you're built after 2019, you don't need to do the study because that was a requirement already at that time for City of Vancouver. I don't know other municipalities.
Okay.
Then you only need the EV ready plan. But if your building was built prior to that, you'll need both. Gotcha.
That
plus the new mandatory depreciation report and like all these other things. So people buying into a strata. I feel like gone are the days of $300 monthly strata fees.
They're done.
Yeah.
They're absolutely done. I'm selling a unit in a new building, 50 cents per square foot strata fee. I think that's great. You know, a lot of the new stuff that you're seeing now, 70 cents, 75 cents. I heard 80 cents was quoted on a new project.
But that's starting.
Exactly.
So like there's this one building in Brentwood. Actually, no, it's a project. It's a master plan community that is already finished, and people are moving in, and they have beautiful amenities.
Amazing.
Did you go to the launch of that?
Amazing. I didn't go to the launch, but I spent time in the amenities.
Okay.
I love it.
So when they were pre-selling that, and I remember because I have clients who bought into it, they were advertising, I think, 70 cents a foot.
Ah, okay.
And I'm looking at everything that's in there, what it takes to even just make sure that no dust settles, like, you know. I'm like, there's no way this is going to stay under $1 a foot.
Yeah.
Like, no way.
Yeah. I think it's like 77, 78 cents now. But the amenities are like, if you use them,
don't ever leave your building.
I would never leave. So that's the other thing too. It's like, you know, they have like workspaces now.
Yeah.
They have the bowling alley. They have the multiple gyms. They have the karaoke rooms. They're really creating like
basketball court,
football.
Yeah. Turf. Yeah.
Yeah. Turf.
How many party rooms?
I think, you know, like I'm generally not a proponent of high strata fees for sure. But I'm like, man, like would I ever leave that building?
Yeah. And
Probably not.
Before I lived in a smaller strata, I didn't really understand the cost of running things. And that's the other thing too, that I'm starting to tell a lot of first time buyers, where you're buying into a smaller strata because you want that community, you want to know all your neighbors and that kind of thing. The cost of running a small strata is like, you need all the same things as a big strata.
Yeah.
And they only adjust the cost by so much.
Yeah.
So you're actually ending up paying more in strata fees in a small building than a big one.
Yeah, and then if it's like a really small building, some of them are opting to go self-managed to save money as well, which I think is a disaster. Like you should probably have a strong strata management company in there, but you know, strata fees, the biggest cost that is incurred on them is the insurance piece, and that's not going any lower. Every year it seems there's, you know, another company that opts out of insuring these buildings. I think now there's three or four. Three, yeah. And that also changes, right? 5 years from now, there might be two companies. So, you know, the insurance piece is getting pretty crazy.
Yeah, which also, you know, what they're doing now, and this is what my strata ended up doing, was we couldn't cover the full insurance fee with what we had. We're a new-ish building.
Yeah.
They're like, yeah, no problem. We'll loan you the money with 4%.
Yeah.
Interest. I was like,
yeah, that's right.
Killed me. And I was like, but we have no choice.
Yeah. And then on the individual level, sometimes you're forced to like layer policies, right? Yeah. So if you want flood coverage, depending where you live, or earthquake,
here's
or whatever,
an extra premium, extra bonus.
It's wild. I would love to see whichever provincial party to step up and make some changes when it comes to strata insurance. I know the Conservatives were talking about it if they came into power.
Right.
I think that's going to be the next crisis in real estate in the next 3 to 5 years.
Well, yeah, because we're just building upwards now, so it's the norm.
And a lot of the, well, I don't mean a lot because there's only 2 or 3 of them, but they're like, okay, we're not going to cover you for flood anymore. We're not going to cover you for this. We don't like that level of risk. I understand it because it's a privatized type of a business, but do you have to look at a model now where it's private/public? Like how much of this needs, you know, government control? Like government likes to control everything else, but here's a difficult thing, and it's like they don't want to deal with it. It seems like, right?
Yeah, I feel like that's going to be a Pandora's box, and that's definitely something that we can talk about. And I don't know, what are the chances of us getting an insurance person on the show?
Yeah.
Whether or not they'll be willing to talk and spill industry secrets.
Yeah, we'll get one of the 2 CEOs from one of those 2 companies on here to chat about it. I always feel like the insurance conversation with clients or whatever, it's kind of a dull conversation, but it's one of the most important ones.
I also feel like a lot of people don't understand how important it is. And so this is a horror story, didn't happen to me, but shared to me by a colleague where, you know, sometimes there's a gap between completion and possession day. So basically the day that you're officially the owner and the day that you get the keys. Depending on how things play out, it can be anywhere from like a couple days to, I always say max like 10 days gap between the two. But anyway, so our client completes, and then we always tell our clients your insurance needs to be in play at 12:01 a.m. on the day of completion.
Yeah.
Like not a minute later. And in this particular situation, it just so happened that like the hot water tank like exploded.
Oh.
Literally an hour after completion at like 1 a.m. when nobody was there.
Really?
Yeah. And then luckily he had insurance and that was fine. So
many people would miss that.
Yeah.
So many people.
Because if not, he would have been completely liable to pay all of that out of pocket, pay the strata deductible, which is like usually 50 grand upwards.
Yeah.
If you're affecting other people's units as well. And like, so.
I've worked with clients doing like upsizes or whatever. And when it comes time to talk about insurance, I'm always like, well, whoever you have your policy through right now, good idea to call them because you can.
They have your history.
And they're like, I don't have a policy. What are you talking about in my condo? No joke.
Or even tenants.
Yeah.
Renters insurance.
Yeah.
Like if a leak were to happen, that's your landlord's responsibility. But like if all your stuff gets broken, that's on you.
Yeah. And notify the landlord
if
too.
If there's a leak.
If there's like any sort of issues, like I don't know if you've run into that, but you know, we have clients obviously selling tenanted properties or whatnot. And very often, you know, the tenant gives notice and we're one of the first people in to kind of assess the property. And, you know, there's all sorts of damage that could have easily been avoided if notified. But I think it goes back to that conversation of like, tenants are nervous in a sense, right? Like you don't want to be the squeaky wheel per se, right? Because you don't want the landlord to be like, oh, every time you call, it's some sort of headache.
Yes.
You know, I would say don't be afraid to kind of, you know, be that headache because it's not actually that.
Yeah.
You know, you save so much for, you know, that homeowner and build the relationship that way. But we walk into disaster sometimes.
Yes.
You know?
And think of it as like you're helping your landlord maintain their investment.
Yeah.
In that sense.
This year was the first time I walked into a property. I couldn't deal with it. I had to walk out in 5 seconds. So I went with, I swear to God, it was the smelliest, stank. I hate to say this. It was really bad. So
Did they have pets?
Yeah, like 6 or 7 like pets and so
was this in a building or detached?
It was like a hoarder. It was in a building, like a multifamily building. And I feel bad, but I feel bad because my client actually lasted longer in there than me. So like we went in there and it was like kind of this thing where like I felt heat on my face. Like that's how
like literally you walked through like a wall.
Yeah, so I walked in, I quickly like made a look around or whatever. And my client, he's an investor. He's like, he's going in all the rooms. I had to leave. Like I couldn't actually last or whatever. That was my horror story from this year.
That happened to me last year with a client of mine, and we were looking for like first-time home buyer, looking at one-bedroom condos in Richmond. And we walked in and they had a cat. And then for whatever reason, I don't know if the toilet was broken or they just didn't like to flush, but I don't know how many days of human waste were in that toilet. And it was disgusting. And it was one of those like cheater en-suites where you can basically make a loop without having to turn around.
I like how you're like full on describing this right now. I'm like, I don't know if I could deal.
Sorry, I hope you're not squeamish. And we like walked around and her mom was with us on this tour. And then I usually go last. I let the client, like once we're in the unit, I usually go last and be like, oh yeah, and like point out this, that, and the other because I've usually familiarized myself based on the MLS listing.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, okay, yeah. And then if you go through here, it's the bedroom and then walk through closet and then the bathroom. And she walked into the bathroom. She turned around. She was like, and literally pushed us like back out. And then I was like, what do you mean? Like, what's wrong? And she's like,
oh.
And the agent was standing in the living room and I like just poked my head in and I was like, I almost passed out. It was disgusting.
Brutal. So they didn't write an offer, I take it.
Yeah, no, we like
No,
ran out of that
happen.
building so fast.
Yeah.
And it turned her off to the whole place.
Yeah.
So also as a realtor listing a tenanted property, at the very least, make sure the toilet seat is always down.
Yeah, that's my biggest pet peeve for listing photos.
Yeah.
If I see a listing photo and the toilet seat's up.
Well, I think I told you this. We don't post bathroom photos.
At all?
No.
Really?
Unless there's some like insane feature, then yes.
But other than that, you don't, eh?
No.
You know, that's interesting because I always like when I'm doing like my Instagram or whatever and I'm putting a listing up, if I see a toilet in a picture, I'm like, it's just not that. I don't love it.
Yeah, and like
regardless.
For us, we always have a floor plan in, and so like you can see, is it 4-piece, 3-piece? Like what is the situation? I'll put it up on Instagram when I'm doing my like walkthrough tours, but like on the MLS, it's just like not aesthetic.
Yeah, that's a good point. Because I always wonder about that. I'm like, But then I'm always thinking in my head, like what kitchen and bathrooms.
Yes.
Like if you're going to upgrade your home, put it into kitchen and bathrooms.
Yes.
That's what people care about. But I guess Instagram's not built for toilets and washers.
No, it's just,
not.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
I feel like everybody can imagine what a bathroom will look like.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, true. I guess. Unless it's something like completely epic. I think if it's like super high. Super designer. But a condo bathroom is a condo bathroom.
Yeah. Like if it was a building or a bathroom like in the Tesoro building in Olympic Village, like 100% I would put that on MLS because those bathrooms are beautiful.
That's a great building. Yeah.
Yeah. But otherwise, no.
You guys don't put it on. That's smart. That's awesome.
Some people are like, why are there no bathroom pictures? I want to see what the bathroom's like. I'm like, you can come to the open house.
Do they actually ask sometimes?
I've had like 2 people say that to me.
Yeah. It's a good way to get them to the open house,
and I'm like,
right?
well, hey, you're here now. Come see the bathroom.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. What do you have planned for the, any plans for the holidays?
Well, going down to LA, spend some time with family. So some like family stuff happened. So we're going to be going down there. Typically do go down every year, spend some time with my mom's side of the family. Mm-hmm. I also have some of my dad's side there. So I'm just looking forward to sunshine, hopefully, because last year the weather was atrocious.
Wasn't it like nicer weather here than it was there?
Uh-huh. It was brutal.
Is that a global warming thing?
I think so. Yeah. So hopefully it's the other way around this year.
Yeah.
No, well, I mean, I hope you guys have sunshine too, I guess.
What do you mean you guys? Us guys. It's us. Wow, you're like...
Well, I'm going to be gone for 3 weeks.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's a long time, a lot of family time.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to need a vacation from this vacation.
Right? Yeah. That's the thing. I hate vacations that you actually need a vacation from.
I wouldn't consider this a vacation. Everybody's like, oh my God, you vacation in LA so much, blah, blah. I'm like, it's not a vacation.
Yeah.
I'm seeing family. It would be the same as you spending like 3 weeks with your aunt and uncle like out here.
Right.
So, I mean, I love my family, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But they can be a lot sometimes.
Yeah. No, I hear you. I think
what about you?
I think like, so I'm going to be working for the next week and a bit, it looks like. I mentioned I have that client.
Time off?
I'm going to take like a week off probably.
Yay.
And then maybe go somewhere in early January, depending like how this market moves. Yeah, I mean, we'll see. I find out like you get to my age, because I'm much older than you.
Please.
It's very tough to like align people's schedules.
Yeah.
I find, right? Like for me, like a lot of my friends are married, they have kids, and it's a whole different world. And so for us, it's like, okay, my timeline slows down generally first week of January.
Yep.
And maybe second week as well.
Yeah, because every realtor is in Hawaii.
Right? But then all the normal people that have normal jobs, they're like back at work. Yeah. Kids are back in school. They're busy again. They're trying to like New Year's resolutions.
Yes.
Are you a New Year's resolution person?
Yes and no.
Okay.
I am more a like refresh mindset. I don't know if I told you this before, but I do vision board.
Oh, no.
And I do it every year. Last year I didn't do it, and let me tell you, it was rough. It was a roller coaster last year. Maybe Mercury was in retrograde or whatever they call it for too long.
It was.
But I'm going to say it's because I didn't vision board.
Okay.
So this year,
you do it most years then?
I'm going to do it. Yeah, I've been doing it ever since I started real estate.
Really?
It was just one of those things that I heard from a mentor, and she was like, it's just a nice way to really focus and be present on how you want to visualize the next year. So even if it's like something crazy frivolous or whatever, I'm just like flipping through magazines, which also magazines are so expensive.
Yeah. And then you got to get like so many of them to get all the different stuff.
But then after my mom's like, oh, are you done with the magazines? Can I look through them? I'm like, yeah, sure. She's like, everything's gone.
Cut everything out.
Yeah, I'm like, read it before I cut it up.
Yeah. But that's you investing in your future.
Yes, exactly.
Right? You're putting some money down.
Yeah, and I write it off.
I guess so. It is.
It's like a business expense for me because I use it as a like motivational tool, and then I just have it on a poster board.
Yeah.
And I put it up in my bedroom. I don't have a TV in my room, so I put it up, and so when I wake up in the morning, it's like the first thing that I see.
Okay. I got to do this. I'm not like a New Year's resolution person per se. I feel like New Year's resolutions, they should happen at your birthday.
Oh, yeah. I like that idea.
Like, that's your year.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
That's when you are like.
That's your fiscal year.
Rebirth. That's your. Turn it all business. Well, yeah, that is your fiscal year. But I think that's kind of. Yeah, I'm not I'm not like a wait for January 1st to make something happen. I will just kind of do it when I'm feeling inspired.
Yeah.
Because if I wait, then I probably won't be inspired like at that moment.
Yeah.
But I'm definitely now when it comes to New Year's, I'm very like reflective. I love taking like some time for myself and
yeah, me too.
you know, not even necessarily like did I achieve my goals type of thing, but like am I just happy with like the contribution that I put out into this world
Yeah.
in 2024 and how do I want to build on that for
Yeah.
2025? So I like peaceful, I like quiet, I like some meditation, you know, these sorts of things where before, like, I would just be partying and, like, celebrating all the time
like,
or whatever.
Go by the seat of your pants type of thing. Like, I find being intentional is the biggest game changer when it comes to working towards your goals and being more successful. And even with the vision board thing, it's actually pretty crazy where, like, I do it. Maybe takes me, like, a week. And then at the end of the year, I look back, and it's crazy because I'm not even mentally focusing on those things. But I look back, I'm like, did this, and there's so many things where I was like, look what I accomplished this year.
Yeah.
And it's such like a nice way to visualize what you did. Because I do find that, I don't know if this is your type of personality or maybe it's our industry where like it's so easy to forget the things you've actually accomplished.
Yeah.
Like when things get hard or, you know, adversity, whatnot, it's hard for you to pat yourself on the back and be like, this sucks right now and we're here, but like, look where we came from at the start.
Oh yeah.
So
like the wins, like even celebrating wins. Sometimes I'm like, I'll have like a big win, big real estate win. I'll be like, I'm kind of numb to it. Like it feels good. Like I'm excited or whatever, but then I'm not really a what's next type of a person though.
Right.
Like generally I've been a stop and smell the roses, but you just kind of like move from deal to interaction to interaction. And it's just like kind of all like blends together.
Yeah.
So I think it's nice where you like put it up there, you visualize it. It's a better way of goal setting because it's kind of visual.
Yeah.
And then,
and
you
I'm
can
a visual
like point it
learner.
out.
So like that helps me. I'm sure if I wrote it down, like I'd probably accomplish way more.
Yeah.
But for now, this is working for me. So yeah.
What would you say to, as we close off the show, what would you say to like any newer agents who might be watching the show, you know, 2025, I would say like overall sales transactions, even though it's busier, overall they're way down off of 10-year averages. So I think, you know, not as many agents are necessarily busy.
Yeah.
What sort of like maybe a tip or something that you would give to them?
Stay consistent. Like pick one thing and stick with it. And like give it the time that it deserves. If it's something like social media, like commit to posting twice a week and just do it, no matter like how poorly you feel about it or how unmotivated you are. I know that's something that you've been really successful with.
Yeah.
And I think it's worked for you and it's paid you back tenfold. So something like that. Or if you want to be a pre-sale specialist, stick with that. Give it 6 months. You know, just build on that and show up. That's the hardest part, to show up.
Yeah. And keep showing up. I would say like, for me, it's like the advice that I would give is just to like keep moving your feet.
Yes.
Right? Like just
Baby
keep
steps
doing
is
stuff.
better than no steps.
Like just do stuff. Like every day, make sure you're doing something that is going to potentially attract something your way. I always find like the busier I make myself, the more I'm taking action. Like I may be like door knocking or like, you know, trying to figure out Facebook ads or something like that, like something I don't normally do. And I'm putting a lot of time, I'm putting effort in it. And only when I'm doing those things, I'll get a random phone call from someone and they'll be like, hey, we need your help, sell this place.
Yeah.
And I truly believe in sales karma and like putting out positive energy, being like open and positive to be able to receive.
Yep.
But if you're kind of not, you know, moving your feet and moving in a forward direction, you're not going to have that wind come and help like push you in that direction. And by wind, I mean those leads coming in from unexpected sources.
Yeah.
So just stay positive and keep going.
Yeah.
Just
and I
keep
think
going.
extra asterisk to that too is surround yourself with like-minded people.
Yeah.
It's really easy to get pulled down by people who don't share the same mindset as you.
Just complaining all the time and stuff too, right?
And like you don't want to be around that energy or people who are like, oh, victim mentality, like things are happening to me, like woe is me. It's like everybody has the ability to control what happens in their lives and you want to be around those people. So yeah, that's my other thing too.
That is great advice.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining us on the final episode of 2024.
Yeah.
Looking forward to seeing you next year. We will be more consistent.
Yeah.
We will do more episodes.
Maybe I'll bring my vision board.
Bring it. Because I need to figure out how to...
So you can see the things that I want in my life.
Yeah. Let's do it.
There's a vintage Mercedes two-door on there.
Really?
It's been on
You're
there for the last 5 years. I haven't owned one yet, but it's my favorite aesthetic. Like the old SL two-doors from like the 80s.
Yeah. I know what you're talking about.
So
Tupac used to have one, right?
Yes.
SL 500?
Yes,
okay.
like I want one
California.
in brown.
Okay, I see it. Yeah. No, it's awesome.
Yeah, will it be a headache to drive? Probably. Will it be in standard and I don't know how to drive standard? Maybe, but we'll cross that bridge when I get there.
Yeah, you only live once.
Yeah, so maybe I'll do that next year and then we can talk about, looking forward to 2025. Who knows? Between now and then, we might have some new policy changes, another rate announcement. Who knows?
Yeah, and if you guys have any suggestions for what you want to see on the show, pop them in the comments wherever you're watching this.
Or DM us.
DM us. We would love any ideas, questions you want answered, any of those sorts of things. Yeah. We would love to answer those for you.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well,
thanks so much. Have a great 2025.